I'm gonna bold that.
It's taking it a second.
I'm gonna bold that.
Okay, I muted that. I can see it. So we are live, and it definitely has a delay. I need to get out of that window. Okay. It's weird looking at yourself. So good evening, Star families. Thank you for joining us tonight. We're going to go ahead and start off with introductions and then go into our presentation, followed by questions at the end, depending on how much time we have. We'll get to as many as we can. So my name is Amy Kaler, and I am the coordinator for Star Academy. And tonight with me, I have Dr. Wood, who is our executive director. You want to wave? I guess we'll just wave tonight.
I can wave.
I have Francesca Donato, our education specialist for Star Academy. I have Laura Burial, our teaching and learning director. And then Dr. Ellis, our student services director. So thank you again for joining us tonight, and we'll go ahead and get started. Let me share, and if you guys can confirm when you can see my presentation. Share my screen. Okay.
You see it?
We can see it, and then if you put it in, we can let you know when you put it in present mode.
Okay.
And it's in present mode now.
Perfect. So we'll go ahead and get started. So tonight we're really focusing on our transition to hybrid for Star Academy. And on the different slides, I wonder if I can move this. Looks not. Oh, yep, I can. On our slides tonight, if you have questions throughout our presentation and would like to submit them, you can go to the link that is here in the yellow, and you can post those questions. It was also sent to you in the parent update, and there is a link provided there. So let's go ahead and move forward. So as we are planning for our transition to hybrid, which we will be doing in January, we are taking into consideration safety, making sure we are consistent, and providing a stable transition and environment for our students. So this is just kind of some review. So as we go through tonight, be keeping these things in mind. This is really what we've been thinking about as we're building our plan and as we continue to move forward. So as we transition, the first step that will be happening for STAR and actually for all of NCS is next week between November 2nd and November 6th, we are going to be sending out a sign-up sheet or sign-up form to all of our families. And on this form, it actually looks like this screenshot over here in the presentation. You will be selecting which option you would like to pick, whether you'd like to be distance learning or hybrid. And then within hybrid, if you choose that option, you will set or select your preference of cohort A, cohort B, or no preference, which means you're flexible and can kind of work with either the A cohort or the B cohort, but also knowing that we'll do our best to meet this preference, but it is not a guarantee. Additionally, we also have where you can select if you have other siblings that are attending NCS and if you are an essential worker. So please make sure to be watching for that email that will be coming out next week for you to complete that. And once again, it will be coming out on Monday, and you'll have until next Friday to make that decision. Following that, if you did not complete this document, we will be calling the following week to those families who did not complete it to see which way you would like to move forward. When you do fill out this form, please keep in mind that your commitment is from January 4th until June 11th, and that is for our second semester. So when you make that decision, you will be sticking with that decision through that period of time, unless something major changes with our local health department, and they say if there's some miracle that happens and we're able to go back to full school, we would do that. Or if cases go up, we will navigate that as that comes up too. But this is our plan moving forward. The next step that we'll be taking will cover from about November 16th to December 4th. During this time, we will be rebuilding our classes based on the signups. So depending on our numbers, we will be assigning teachers within each grade level to either be a hybrid teacher or a distance learning teacher. And at this time, we do not know which teacher will be assigned to either one of those models. It's going to completely depend on the signups of each student per grade level. Once students are placed, then please keep in mind that we will be placing students as best possible based on your preference, whether it's to be a distance learning student or to be hybrid. If you are hybrid and you have that choice of A track or B track, we'll do our best to meet that. That will then help guide us towards building these classes, and we're going to do our best to not switch teachers. However, do not count on having the same teacher because it's really going to depend on what we see, and we need to ensure that we balance both the tracks, A track and B track, to meet the social distancing requirements, and then also making sure that we have balance. So we think about boys and girls in our class and just different dynamics that go on, because we want to make sure all students have the best learning environment for them. The third step in this process as we transition to hybrid, it will be happening from December 11th or 7th to 11th. During this time, we will confirm with families who their teacher will be, what option, confirming which option you picked, whether it's distance learning or if it is hybrid, and then what track you will be on if you are a hybrid student. Then we will have another parent information night that will give more details about our transition to hybrid. So this will cover what to expect those first 2 weeks we come back in January, and then how will we be supporting students to be successful during this transition. Following that, our fourth step will be for our January 4th to 15th, which is what I was just talking about a little bit on that last slide. And during this time, we'll be welcoming back the hybrid students to campus, which we're very excited about. During this 2-week period of time, our focus for each class, whether you're distance learning or if you are going to be hybrid, we'll be working on building the class community with the students, since there will be some reorganization of the different classes. Then we'll also be working on transitioning the students, so making sure they're comfortable. This will actually start happening in December as we figure out how all the numbers work out and where students are going, to ensure that our students are comfortable and that there's an end to this first semester and a welcoming start to the second semester. And then during this time, we'll also be working on routines and procedures. This is something that we do at the beginning of every year, and we did as we entered in August with distance learning. But as we transition into hybrid, school's going to look a lot different for what the expectation is for our students. And so we need to teach our students what are those new routines and procedures. Some of them will be the same, but quite a few will be added and different in the whole aspect of just wearing masks and being socially distanced, washing hands, sanitizing, where they put their things, what they need to bring to school with them. So we want to ensure that our students know what to expect and that they're successful in the environment. And by allowing this 2-week time, this is a good way to make the transition much smoother than coming in and just expecting our students to know what to do when they're coming into a different environment. So moving forward, so that was kind of our plan for the next steps over the course of the next month or 2 months-ish with some holidays in there. So one of our things that we talk about consistently is the consistency that we want for our students and making that transition from distance learning to hybrid. So on the left here, you can see our distance learning model that we currently have. And then in the middle here, you can see transitioning into the hybrid model. So in the yellow, you can see that track A, it says Monday, Tuesday, they'll be in school. And then in the blue, kind of diagonally across, you can see that they'll be home on Thursday and Friday. And Wednesdays will continue to be a virtual day for all students. And this is when teachers are doing IEP meetings, other staff meetings, preparing lessons and planning. So all of those things we're clumping together, and we'll continue to have that consistent model for that. And then you can see Thursday and Friday, B group would be in person, and then A group would be at home. Distance learning students will continue just at home the whole time. So just some things to think about is hybrid does provide the opportunities for students to come to campus. It allows them to connect with their peers in person. They're able to get in-person support and connect with staff and develop their new normal because it is going to be different. The challenges with hybrid are that there's less direct support from teachers. And if you think about the model of hybrid that we have been seeing pretty much throughout the United States, the teachers are navigating. Did somebody say something? Sorry. 3 different types of students, which are the roomies, the zoomies, and then the extended distance learning. And so we'll be talking about this on the next couple slides about how we're going to try to increase our support for these students so we don't lose so much support like what we're seeing elsewhere in other districts. And then students during this time with hybrid, they are going to be expected to be more independent than what they are now. But once again, we're going to go through our model that we'll be doing, and we're hoping to offer a little bit more support. And then once again, there's going to be new support structures for in-person learning and the learning a new version of school. So those are just some challenges that we're going to be navigating. So as we move into this next slide, I just want to remind everybody that our guiding question really is, how do we make this pivot but ensure that our students and families have similar levels of support in person and virtually, while also making the work environment safe and stable for staff and students too. So just keeping that in mind as we go through. So on this portion, what I am going to be explaining is kind of our model, which is a little bit different than what we've been seeing. We're trying to think outside of the box. And once again, how can we best support our students? Knowing that we're navigating really 3 different groups of students. We have the ones that will be in the room. We have the ones that are at home part of the week that are hybrid students, but they will have virtual days. And then we are also navigating the full distance learning students. So with that, what we have come up with is to reorganize our grade levels. So what we're going to do based on the numbers is select teachers within each grade level that will be hybrid teachers. And then we will select, depending on the numbers, how many distance learning teachers we will need to facilitate those students that will be extended distance learning students for the remainder of the second semester. Within that, we have also talked about that we're working on hiring distance learning facilitators. And this is a person for each grade level that will help support both the hybrid teacher and the distance learning teacher. But the way that they're going to do that is that the hybrid teacher's focus is really going to be during the day. So if you're in 1st grade through 5th grade, your students will be in the class from 8:30 until 1 o'clock. And we want those hybrid teachers to really focus on the students that are there. So they'll be doing that while the distance learning teacher is working with the extended distance learning students and providing core instruction through the virtual model. When they're doing that, our hybrid students who are on their virtual day will go into that distance learning class for just the core subject areas to sit in while the distance learning teacher is teaching the lesson. At the end of the lesson, they're then going to exit that Zoom room and they'll be able to go in with the distance learning facilitator to get additional support on the lesson that was taught or the lessons that are taught throughout the day. And then the distance learning facilitator will be able to intervene and provide support to the students who are on hybrid during their virtual day. So that way they don't have to wait until office hours that are that 1:30 to 2:15 to receive support in depending how many areas that they might need. So maybe they just need help in reading, or maybe they need help throughout the day. Well, now instead of having to wait, they will be able to have that person there that can support them throughout the day. So we really feel that this will allow our students to be provided a higher degree of support and consistency with what they're doing. And this also helps provide our teachers to not have to navigate all three sets of these students, the roomies, the Zoomies, and the extended distance learning students at one time. It really lets each teacher focus on the students that are there with them. So let's go ahead and move forward. So taking that information and then breaking it down even further for in-person students, this table kind of explains what will be going on. So in-person students will be that whole group with the teacher teaching the lesson to the students that are in the classroom. And then during independent time, the teacher will be going around the classroom and be able to support the students. Students will be working collaboratively, but with our COVID procedures and protocols that we need to ensure. So still that's social distancing, having masks on, and being appropriate with following those guidelines. And then our goal is to really maximize that in-person structure so we can build the consistency and have class discussions and in-person support. And this is where the teacher not having to navigate online students and in-person students at the same time will allow for more of this targeted instruction and really maximize the 2 days that the student, each group will be there. So track A will get more tailored support that's really direct without having to share that time with students that would potentially be online. Then looking at the at-home group, so this is, it could be the A or B group, so it's our hybrid group that would be virtual for that day. And during that time, the whole group instruction, like I said in the last slide, the extended distance learning teacher would be providing the core lessons, so they would be teaching the lesson. And then the students would be Zooming in with that teacher, similar to what we're doing right now. And then when it comes to the independent practice, so the teacher will do the teaching and then the students need to work on their own. That's when the hybrid virtual day students would either go work independently, or if they need support, they would go into a Zoom link with the distance learning facilitator. So that person could then help them with the lesson that went on and provide them the support, which could be something quick, or they might want to stay with them a little longer for additional support, depending on their need. And then once again, the students will have the option to work independently depending on the career or what's going on and if they need support or not. And then the extended distance learning group, so these are the students that will be home the whole remainder of that second semester. During whole group time, they'll be with the extended distance learning teacher who will provide the instruction. The students will be Zooming. It's very much like what we're doing right now. There might be slight tweaks in what's going on, but for the most part, it will look identical to what's going on. During their independent time, these students will either be working with the extended distance learning teacher right now. Sometimes they're doing small group, or there's different instruction pieces going on, and then some students go to work independently. The students might also end up with a distance learning facilitator at that time if they need supports there. We'll just have to navigate that to see what our students need, and it's really going to be dependent on the grade level. And then there's going to be opportunities for collaboration there. So this is when teachers might do breakout groups, that the groups are working independently together to come up to do a project, but very much like what we're doing now. And then for all of these, there are the office hours that are from 1:30 to 2:15. So office hours for the hybrid model will be given priority to the students who are virtual for the specific day. The distance learning facilitator will also be able to have office hours. So the students on any of the different tracks can go in there. If you are in person that day, hopefully students' questions can be answered at school or intervention there, but the office hours are available to any of those students. And then the extended distance learning students will also have those office hours, which will also probably what we're doing right now is there are small group instruction during that time. Sometimes it's one-on-one instruction. It just depends. So depending on need, each class will be slightly different and grade level slightly different. But that's kind of giving you an idea of what stuff is going to look like. And then when we come back in December, we'll go into even more specifics within each grade level.
Mrs. Kaler, there's
Yes.
a clarifying question that popped into the question feed, and it's just clarifying, does the distance learning teacher teach the extended distance learning kids and the at-home kids simultaneously?
Yes, for just the lesson. So just the instruction part, instead of the virtual students that are a hybrid, but they're on their virtual day, instead of them watching a video or going in and having the teacher who's the hybrid teacher teaching a lesson to the class with a camera just watching them, the distance learning teacher is going to take that on, because that format, it's a little bit easier on the distance learning teacher to have extra students in there because the format's already set up. So it's much easier to hear and understand what's going on versus having a dynamic in the class and a dynamic online. It's a little bit harder to navigate that. So yes, the extended distance learning teacher will take on the lesson portion, which is anywhere between 5 to 15 minutes. If you're in reading or then a math lesson, it could potentially go a little longer just depending on the age group, but they will be doing that part. So the initial instruction on the virtual days.
And then the students, so when, let's say the teacher teaches the lesson,
Mhm.
and then if the students still need additional support, who's helping which group of students?
So if they are a hybrid virtual day student, the distance learning facilitator would then support those students after the lesson. During the day, they can still meet with their actual classroom teacher at the end of the day during office hours, but during the day they go to the distance learning facilitator. If they're an extended distance learning student, they would get support from the distance learning teacher, unless there was a group built in, and then they could still access the distance learning facilitator, but the distance learning teacher would be their primary source.
Thank you.
Does that make sense? Hopefully. Okay. So let's go on to the next part. So this is to give you an overview for our daily schedule, and it's identical to what we're doing right now. The only difference you're going to see is at the very top, for both the TK kindergarten and then the 1st and 5th grade, is that on the TK side over here, we are going to have soft starts to our morning, and this is to spread out our kids as they come onto campus to ensure that we're having that socially distance and following all of our COVID protocols. So for 1st through 5th grade, it will be a soft start, which means that the students can come in between 8:10 and 8:30, very much like what we've traditionally done. But instead of going out to the blacktop or to the tables when they come in, they'll go straight to the classroom. And the teacher will have them be at their desk and have something for them to do. If they need breakfast, we're still working on that part. It will probably come to them. but we'll confirm that with you in December. So once again, giving that time range, but they'll go straight to their classroom. Then once the 1st through 5th graders are in, then at 8:40, we will open up our TK through kindergarten classrooms, and they'll have a soft start from 8:40 until 9 o'clock, with school starting at 9 o'clock for them. So that's really the only difference from what is going on right now. But we want to make sure that you know that, so you know what to expect. So if you have a 1st through 5th grader and a TK and kinder, there's really only about, if you came towards the end of drop off for your older child, and then you could drop off your TK kinder right at the beginning of that soft start starting. So it's not a big transition. There's not a half an hour in there. Right. And then we'll go into this more in December with your individual grade levels. So what will in-person look like? So this is a picture of Mrs. Torres's classroom, and it is set up for she's doing distance learning, but it's set up for hybrid. So in this, you can see that we have the individual desks. They're socially distanced. The students will be expected to sit there, and teachers are working on how to navigate collaboration within this format. So that's something that we're working on. We also wanted to let you know with recess will be at the discretion of the teacher. So they'll figure out what time of day works best for their class. Classes will be outside individually for recess. So if there is a class on the play structure and a class on the grass, they will not interact. They will stay in the area that they're in. And that's once again to help with the cohorts and keeping down contact between the different group. Students can play on the play structure. I know that is something that has been asked. We will be having students wash their hands or sanitize their hands before going out to play, or before going out to eat, and after they have done that too. So really trying to ensure, once again, that we minimize as many germs being spread as possible. Then going into safety and movement and lunches around the school. So this is kind of the catch-all slide. So coming and leaving school, as I stated in a couple slides ago about the staggered drop-off, having those soft starts. And then dismissal is staggered, where TK and kinder leave a little bit early, a half an hour earlier, and then 1st through 5th grade is at 1 o'clock. There will be designated signs on the ground for where you enter. Kinder and TK will go through their side, and then the rest of the grade levels on the other, but there will be direction arrows in that for you, and spacing marked out on the ground. Face coverings, this has been a question that we have been asked. Face coverings, whether it's a mask or a face shield with a skirt on the bottom of it, will be required for TK through 5th grade students. It is also required for staff. All staff will be wearing one or the other, or both potentially, and visitors will be required to do the same thing. Recesses and breaks, once again, like I said on the last slide, will be classroom specific at the discretion of the teacher when to take them. Everything's kind of compacted down. So there will probably be one recess, and then they'll have lunch, and the day is going to go quick. Students, once again, will be washing or sanitizing their hands when they leave the classroom and when they return to the classroom, and then depending on what they're doing in the classroom, probably even more times. Breaks will always follow the COVID procedures and protocols. Then screening, this is something that's been updated recently. Screening for all families and staff will happen at home, but we really want to make sure that for our illness procedures, that if you think you are sick, please sit it out, stay home. Just call the office and let us know, and we can get you to log on virtually, so your student does not miss out. We are making sure that we can have some flexibility, and that we can ensure that your student can learn even if they're sick, or if they need to be isolated until you find out, to ensure that they're good to go if they're hybrid and coming into school. For lunches at Star, lunches will be held by grade level, and we can accommodate our students at the tables. There will only be 2 students per table, and there will be paper covering them that can be removed each time, and they'll be sanitized between the groups quickly. And then we'll be using our exterior space out where all the tables are by the NPR, and then also rolling up the doors and using some of the indoor space too, but making sure that airflow is there. And then if we have inclement weather, so any rain, or if we have super high temperatures or super low temperatures, lunches would be moved into the classroom at that time. Then for our SCAPE, or which is base, for our formerly base for our childcare, starting in January. So January 4th is our first day back on campus. And during this time, we will have after school care available. There will not be any before school care at this time. So for TK in kindergarten, they can go into base as early as 12:30 when they get out, and it will be open until 6 o'clock. And then 1st through 5th grade, it will be from 1 o'clock to 6 o'clock. Signups are on a week in advanced basis, just like we're doing right now. Within that, they would be able to attend base on the days that, so if you're a hybrid student, you would be able to attend on the days that you are in person. And then on Wednesdays, base would be available between 8 o'clock and 6 o'clock because that's that full virtual day. But we do have a max capacity of 40 students to ensure the social distancing and COVID procedures and protocols. And then finally, I want to end on a call to action. We do know that this year is very dynamic, and we know that it's not easy for families. It's not easy on schools or any of us that are navigating this, and we're all doing the best we can. But we want to encourage all of you to really take a positive mindset into telling your child and supporting them with this transition to hybrid, whether they stay on full distance, extended distance learning, or if they go into that hybrid model. We are all models for this dynamic time, and our students have really shown that they're resilient and adaptable, and they are good with change. And it's hard, but by preparing them and being positive about it, we can really make this last semester great for them. So now we'll go ahead and move over to questions. So I'm going to stop presenting. Okay, there we go. I need to stop sharing my screen. Okay. I think I stopped sharing my screen, right? Yes. All right, so now we have a little bit of time that we can go ahead and take questions.
I will start reading the questions. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Let me find the new ones. Are the kids then having to log in and out of multiple Zoom accounts?
They would have one Zoom account, but they might have there will be consistent links if they're on their virtual day.
Okay.
But they will have to navigate between the teacher, the distance learning teacher, and the distance learning facilitator. But that will be within their slides that they get every day, like what they do now.
Why is this decision locked in for the whole semesters when things could look radically different between January and June? What if parents want to keep kids from school when there's a surge in cases, but then send them back to learn when cases subside?
Do you want me to start, Joe? And then if you want to add anything, you can.
Go ahead. Yeah, you can start.
So the reason for needing to make the decision and committing to one versus the other is we're designating our teachers for where the supports are going to be. So we're building extended distance learning classes and hybrid classes with hybrid teachers. And by doing that, it's not going to allow for the adjustments to go between them. And really, it's the thinking behind that is we can provide a more supportive model for our students and for our teachers to be able to manage. So having our kids be more successful, but it does then limit our ability where we can't be having kids transition from one to the other.
And I'll just add to that, based on the latest survey that the Star Academy families completed, we're probably looking at 50 to 60% of families signing up for extended distance learning, which is significantly more than the 20 to 25% that we're talking about that earlier in the year. So really our goal here is to take all of your feedback in terms of what you're indicating for the spring semester and then rebuild classes appropriately to make sure that your students are fully supported. At this point, we're being told by Sacramento County Public Health to plan for this model for the remainder of the school year. They have no plans to change the requirements of 6-foot physical distancing in classrooms until there's a readily available and used vaccine in our community. So they are advising all schools in the area to continue with their hybrid model. So, as you are making your decision as a family, we do recognize it's a significant amount of time to commit to, but we do encourage you to really think about, well, what do we think we want to do for the whole semester? And certainly, if your family finds yourself in a point of crisis where your choice is really not working, we'll be looking, to see where we can provide some flexibility. But we really do want families to make the decision with the idea that it's what your family wants to do for the entire spring semester.
And there's two clarifying questions with that. It sounds like hybrid 2 teachers. Is this correct?
I missed the first part of what you said, Addie. You cut out.
It sounds like hybrid students will have 2 teachers. Is this correct?
They'll have their main teacher, but just like right now, so currently all students have one teacher, correct? But they are seeing videos that are recorded on lessons that they might be seeing other teachers, actually most all grade levels, the teachers are dividing and conquering. So you'll see other teachers within the grade level teaching your student. It's just recorded. So it's basically the same theory behind it. However, it will be live in that moment. So kind of ish, but not really.
One thing I can add to that too, that's a little bit different than maybe what you've experienced in another school year, is really what we're talking about here is the grade level working together as a cohesive team. I know, some of the grade levels have actually kind of structured themselves that way. I was speaking with one kindergarten parent who sort of joked that he's not sure his sons know actually who their actual teacher is, because they have lessons from the different teachers. And that's really the idea here, is to, the teachers came together and said, we really want to provide kids the highest level of support we can. So that's going to really require us to work together as a grade level team. And so, to add on to what Mrs. Kaler said, if you choose extended distance learning, your child's pretty much only going to work with their extended distance learning teacher. But if you choose hybrid, on the days they come to school, they're working with the same teacher every day they come to school. So if they're in Mr. Semple's class, they're going to see Mr. Semple every time they come to school. When they are at home, though, on their at-home days, then they would be working with another 5th grade teacher and the distance learning facilitator. And that's like Mrs. Kaler mentioned, really with the intention of providing the highest level of consistency for kids. As I was just sharing, the county's telling us to plan for this the remainder of the year. One thing that's really kept me up at night as a parent and as a leader of our school is that if we are going to be on hybrid for a long period of time, I don't want our kids to fall academically behind or any further behind than we already are dealing with the pandemic. And so really what we're trying to do here is make sure that your students are supported every single day and are receiving instructions from a credentialed teacher every single day. And that, we don't have a model where teachers are kind of having to ignore the kids that are online because they're immediately supporting the kids in the classroom. And part of what I spent fall break doing was really evaluating different hybrid models that were occurring in other districts. And this was a common thing that many districts were sharing with us, is they said, everyone together on the Zoom call isn't actually working out with everyone getting support. Often what's happening is the kids in the classroom are getting support, but the kids at home are not getting that same level of support because the teacher's got to work with the kids that are immediately in the room. So we're trying to put some structures here in place that we can keep that level of consistency that we've had with extended distance learning.
Another clarifying question is, I'm thinking they're referring to our special, so social emotional counselor. How will extras work?
Okay, so they will continue whether you are a hybrid student or a full distance learning student. If you are a hybrid student, you will have your specials. So that is Miss Hines with the Kind Kids Club, art, Spanish, and library. You will have those on the days that you are on campus. So if you're A track, you would have those on Monday, Tuesday. If you're the B track, you would have it on Thursday, Friday. If you are an extended distance learning, you would also have them on Monday, the Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, between those. So they would still receive all the same specials there.
Can you clarify the requirement for protection, both mask and shield, or one or the other?
So one or the other. But if you're wearing a face shield, you do have to have the skirt on the bottom.
And to add to that, we have cloth-based face coverings for every single student at Natomas Charter School. But chances are, especially at this point in the pandemic, your child's already adopted a favorite one that they're wearing when they're going out and about.
Will we know before signing up for hybrid if our child's teacher will change?
No, we will not know which teacher your child will have for sure until after we know the numbers, because we will build and assign teachers to being distance learning or hybrid after we know how many of each we need.
And this is another clarifying question. If we move to purple tier, will schools close again or not reopen as planned on January 4th?
I can answer that question. So the answer is it depends right now. So currently, the current guidelines, if the county moves back to purple, currently schools cannot reopen. But what we've heard in talking to Sacramento County Public Health and their conversations with the California Department of Public Health, they're revisiting that process and that idea, because often when a county goes into the purple zone, it's not the entire county, it's specific zip codes within the county. And so what could happen is, let's say Sacramento County slips into the purple zone because there's zip codes in Elk Grove that have significant increases, but zip codes in Natomas do not. What may happen is they may permit schools in Natomas to open, but not permit schools in Elk Grove to reopen. Public Health's goal is to get schools reopened. And so they're trying to provide a more targeted approach when we do have increased cases in the county. So at this point, I think, plan for the possibility of it not opening. But I think based on I meet with them every Friday, and based on the conversations I have with them, I think that if we do regress back into the purple tier, they're really going to look at how they can target reopenings or closures to the greatest extent possible.
There are two SEL questions that are tied together. The first, how do you plan to hit the SEL needs of younger students to ensure that they are excited and not scared or timid about the change of teacher uh, to avoid major setbacks for students?
Is this one tied to the other one, or are you just saying there were two?
That's just the one. I'm going to read the second one.
So with it, Miss Hines has been going in and will continue to go into each classroom, whether they're on hybrid or in person, or hybrid or distance learning. She's already working on the transition as we figure out what's going, or what we're doing, which we've kind of made the decision moving forward. She is going to work with the classroom teachers, and they're going to work together to kind of close out this first semester and letting the students know what to expect, what it's going to look like, be positive, thinking about that transition, just like you would going into a new school year or ending out at the end of a school year. So between the classroom teacher and Miss Hines, they will continue to do lessons that will be around these topic areas. And also the teachers have their class meetings daily, and this is something that will come into play more so in December. So December and then going through January. And this is also why we're building in that 2 weeks of review in January. So we can really work on building that class community and transitioning the students so they feel comfortable, and we work on those connections with the teachers if they end up with a different teacher or class.
Will academic knowledge also be transferred between teachers?
Yes. So all of our teachers, but for each grade level, have actually been working collaboratively this whole year because of what is going on and needing to be able to move students within each class. So if a teacher is sick and had to be out, or if there was some kind of emergency, which has happened, the other teachers within the grade level will push those kids into their class, and they will take them on, and they're staying consistent with the lessons that they're teaching. It will have their flair on it, so their style, but they're still working with that same material, and so they're working at the same pace. And this year, that is something that has been a focus for our whole academy, and something that we keep reiterating that we have to do to support each other as we navigate what is going on, because there are so many moving parts.
I noticed the hybrid school days are much shorter than usual. Will the kids need to come home and do more work after school lets out? How will kids make up the gaps with shorter days?
So our days are shorter, but we have compact or basically taken the full day and we've brought it down for the part where the instruction is, which is what I'm assuming people are referring to. And we did that by taking out recesses in some of the transition times. Um, so really streamlining the day. We will have stuff for them to do. So from 1 o'clock to 1:30 is that transition time. That's when school gets out for the majority of our students. They'll be driving home or going wherever. And then from 1:30 until 3 o'clock, will really be around doing PE, so getting out. Hopefully the teachers will have links that are provided. Also, during that time, they will likely have them wanting them to read for like 20 minutes just on their own, which is something we've always encouraged in the past. And then potentially iReady just to work on their skills that's targeted towards them for maybe 20 minutes, 30 minutes in there. So opportunities to do stuff, but there will be flexibility built within it. I hope that answers it.
How often are teachers going to be required to take a COVID-19 test?
I can answer that question. So in Sacramento County, the county is actually providing COVID-19 surveillance testing for all educators and school-based employees in the county. And the idea is that teachers or other professionals that work at the school site are getting a COVID-19 test once every 2 months. So we're sort of set up that every 2 weeks, 25% of our school goes and gets a COVID-19 test. The reason why it's on a 2-month cycle is that they want to conduct surveillance testing, but not overwhelm the testing system and making sure that we have those resources available in our county. So at Natomas Charter School, we actually started this process in October. So the first 2 weeks of October, a quarter of our staff went. Now we're in the second 2 weeks of October, another quarter of our staff is going, and then we're moving into November. The testing facilities that we're using are also available to anyone in the community. And so, you know, for all of us that live in the Natomas area, if you weren't aware, there's actually a community testing site at the Natomas Unified School District office that the county runs. And testing's available there on Tuesdays from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. And right now they actually have a lot of availability. So if you want to participate in surveillance testing, you can as well. And I saw a related question in the chat that I'll go ahead and answer about students being required to test. We're not requiring students to participate in surveillance testing. That's not something that's required as part of the return to school procedures in the county. If we do have situations, though, where a student has been exposed to COVID-19, or maybe they have a family member that's COVID-19, as a school, we're going to be encouraging the family to make sure that the child gets tested. And that might be part of the process of being able to come back onto campus. And so when that happens, families can always go to their primary care physician, or they can actually go to one of the community-based resources like I was mentioning at the school district office.
Will teachers be able to walk around the classroom to see kids work and help when needed, or do they have to stay 6 feet away from students?
So knowing the teachers, they will walk around. They will have a mask on and follow the protocols. And I think they're going to navigate it as best possible because they're not going to just be sitting behind a plexiglass in the front of the classroom. They will move around, but they're going to still try to distance themselves. So it's not going to be having the teacher right here next to you. They'll probably be standing back as much as they can, but still being able to help the student.
There's two, I'm trying to read this last question. Um, I'll just read the whole thing. Concern for a TK boy. Will TK students be able to play outside on play structures run in the field? Anything to get the wiggles out to help with behavior and concentration? Or will the students be required to sit still within their roles? They need to move to be successful. Also, how is staff going to handle shy, scared, and crying little ones? Encourage into school, not wanting to leave mommy and daddy after months of being home. Also, what will typical TK day look like? Thanks.
So I'll answer this as best I can remember from what you said. So, yes, they will be able to play outside. They will stay with their class, and it will be Miss Benz. So, Miss Benz is very good about play and knowing like students need a break. They won't sit in their seat. I think she's a realistic person about expectations for 4 and 5-year-olds, young 5-year-olds. So they'll be able to go out, they'll be able to run around and play, but once again, that will be at her discretion and it would not be with other classes by them. Within the classroom, we are actually working on purchasing some alternative seating in a different way. So they will have their individual desks, just like the classroom that I showed the picture of, that they'll be expected to sit there for a period of time, probably not a long period of time. We're talking probably like maybe 10 minutes. That's usually reasonable for that age. And then our kinder and TK teachers we're working on getting them mats that would be on the ground so they can also have floor time, but be contained to a space. So that way they know where they're socially distanced. This is my contained area that I can be on the floor and they could do stretching or other activities where they're moving around, but they know that's their space. So we're working on thinking creatively because we know that they're not going to sit in their seat without falling out of their chair first the time. And Mrs. Donato.
So many people might not be aware we do have a learning hub of primary students. So on Wednesdays, my staff and I work with a group of TK, kinder, and first graders. And we have had smaller incidents, just like the beginning of the school year, where children have a harder time with separating from their families. However, they are generally, we're seeing super excited just to be around other children. So they are coming in and ready to learn. Sometimes they are a little shy or a little scared initially, but they're really good at greeting each other. The thing we are utilizing actually in the classroom, we have our distance. We have some plexi separation for in certain areas of our office, our room area. And we are actually using a wiggle bubble, which is basically a hula hoop. And the students know that whenever they need a break, it's right in their space. On the ground, they can sit in it and take a wiggle break. They can stand up. Some of them sit and do the whole body thing, but they are able to kind of transition to a space that's their own space. And we're really training them about knowing their bubble and staying in their bubble. And we talk about that when they're on the play structure also. We are utilizing the play structure with sanitizing hands beforehand, going out, having a recess break, and they will say to each other, "Stop, you're in my bubble," if they, which is super cute and super happy to be with them. But really, our primary teachers really understand that need for movement, and the children are working well with that. The group we're working with now.
That is the end of the question. However, there are several that asked just to reiterate the day they'll find out about either which track they're selected for if they choose hybrid.
It's the week of December 7th, I think, right? It's the Monday, December 7th.
That ends your questions, Ms. Kayla.
Good timing. We're like right on time too. Well, we just want to say thank you to everybody who joined us tonight. Be looking for that document coming out next week where you're going to sign up. So the sign up document. And then in December, or before then, but in December, we'll hold parent meetings, and we'll likely do that by grade level. So you can hear individual grade levels. And what it will look like for your students, what that transition time will look like, and then the specific supports that we'll be doing to ensure the best transition possible with students switching over to semester 2. So with that, I am